Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services in Eastland, Texas. Tune in every week as we share important information to help you and your family live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, legacy and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Good morning and welcome to Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services right here out of the blessed town of Eastland, Texas. Yes, we are small, but we have big hearts and big minds, and we do everything we can each week to make this show a value and a blessing to others. We know there's a lot of information out there these days, and it's just finding good information that's so important. We laugh about this all the time. If you really are convicted in your beliefs before you actually ask the question, you could probably find whatever answer it is that you want to find. And the answer is out there and it'll support you, whether it's right or wrong. Well, our take is we want to make sure that you're having good, sound information so that you can make wise decisions about your future, your family's future, and you can live life on purpose. And today is no different. Are you doing everything you can to save taxes? Yes, it is tax season. It is upon us. And I am not talking about recognizing the deductions for the brother-in-law as a charity. No, it doesn't quite work that way, right? We all know that. We all wish that. We all have those family support issues in which we wish we could deduct a lot more than we are. But in reality, yes, we are in tax time and everybody's looking back at 2022 right now, possibly writing checks, looking at how much they've paid, looking how much they're anticipated to pay for 2023. And some people are on the verge of having strokes and having heart attacks. And I just want to say it's really nice weather outside. You should be walking and getting some of that stress relief off. Number one, that's the number one recommendation today on the show. But in reality, a lot of people do get to this time of year and they kind of have that panic and say, well, what can I do now? And there are a few things that you can go back and do for 2022, possibly a retirement plan, possibly the way that you've structured things, possibly being able to go back and amend past tax returns, right? But when you get to this point that you're looking back at the year before and trying to figure out ways to save money, it gets to be really close to nothing you can do. And so, our recommendation to people is that you need to be thinking right now about 2023 and not just 2023. You need to be thinking right now about 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026. And yes, I could keep going and keep going and keep going. Why do I say this? Well, there's a few important points here. First of all, we're big believers in beginning with the end in mind. And I think it comes from the perspective that we really do get to start at the end with the families that we work with. Most of the time, we're working with people that are near retirement, selling their business, transferring their business down, to the next generation or their employees, setting up their legacy planning. And we're trying to figure out how to do those things most tax efficiently. And we get to take a look at the history of how things were actually set up. We get to take a look at the deductions that had occurred to date. And sometimes that year by year planning of what can I do to lower my taxes this year creates this ticking tax bomb for the end date. And it's really, really hard to unravel, if not near impossible in some instances, right? So, I think it's really important that people slow down, especially business owners, especially successful people that have ranches, real estate, large assets, right? And really to slow down and say, okay, what is the end game here? What are the things that could end up happening? And I know that's very difficult for people to do when they may be 10, 15, 20 years out from really having to get serious about that day. A lot of business owners we've worked with over the years absolutely love what they do. It's why they got into business. And so they never plan to walk away from that or always at least be there part-time. But the question of, well, what happens if, and we like to think we're invincible, but your health can change on a dime. A death could occur in the family, if not your own death. And how are those things going to be handled? And so I think it's really important to at least have that end game, have that plan, have those what ifs, and then you decide, right? You decide, is that really important to plan around or is that not? But at least you know, and at least you aren't sitting there at the end saying, man, I wish somebody would have told me this, because it happens often. So there's reason number one. Reason number two, there's a special date coming up in 2026. It is when tax reform ends. All of these nice little tax breaks, including the Section 199A deduction, which for pass-through entities has possibly created you a nice little 20% deduction on your income. All of these things are set to expire in 2026. And so a lot of people, are just making hay right now, but they're not putting hay back for the dry season that's coming. And my suggestion to you is that you need to start working on the dry season that's coming. And we're not even going to jump off into estate taxes today, but I am going to tell you, that's a big area that needs attention today. You cannot wait. And, we said this a few years ago, and it was so true. If you wait to the last minute, all of the good professionals are going to be tied up. They're going to be gone because people are going to be using them, right? So you need to get ahead of that game. And, I think a lot of times people are saying, well, I don't want to, that's so far away. Pendulum could swing in Washington. Things can change. I don't want to set anything in stone. And I don't blame you. You shouldn't set anything in stone. You should have everything set up where it's very flexible, but you should have it set up. And most people wait till the last minute or don't do it at all and look in arrears. And they're going to be sitting here in April of 2027 going, oh my goodness, right? So we've got these two things that are kind of outliers and really need to be thought about for the future. And so you think those, and then you think the thoughts that you're thinking today that maybe give you the stroke or the heart attack about what your tax bill is today, and how do you minimize that, right? And, I think most business owners have this similar story, right? They start out and they're scraping and saving just to pay taxes. It's really difficult. And that might be you. That might be where you're at. You may be really successful and had a very successful year, unexpectedly had this massive tax bill that you really just don't even understand how it got there. You're getting an education in tax overnight. It's incredible, right? But you work with your accountant every year and you try to get that tax that you owe Uncle Sam down to a minimum amount for that year. Accountants, tax professionals, they should be really good historians, right? They should be able to take history and make this beautiful book out of it to be able to minimize the tax impact as much as possible. In fact, I think that's even in the CPA's code that they have to help their clients minimize the tax impact. So it's really good what they do, right? But you're looking at this year and you're not looking at future years and how your decisions this year might affect future years, and it might create a worse tax bomb in the future. So you are doing that. And then maybe you restructured to an entity or restructured the entity, changed your accounting methods. I'm going to bet that you bought equipments and vehicles and those types of things. Maybe you put some money back into retirement accounts. And the more success that comes, the more business owners do these same things, trying to avoid sending too much money to Uncle Sam. Well, it gets to a point that, a lot of people say, I'm done spending money. I'm looking at my liquid accounts here. I've got everything wrapped up in my business over here, and I have no liquidity over here. I'm working like a slave over here, and I really have nothing to show for it except for the cars that I'm able to write off, which are nice, and I enjoy it. It's a perk of being a business owner. And we see this all too often. In fact, years ago, I had a rancher we had worked closely with, and he told me, I'm done buying green paint as the answer. Couldn't be closer to the truth than I think for most people. And yet they still do it because they think that's the only thing that they can do. And it's simply not true. Between, oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many strategies there are specifically for business owners to be able to get cash out of your business and not pay tax on that cash. There's ways to structure things, set up things, put things for the future, benefit your employees. I'm asking people all the time, so would you rather pay Uncle Sam or pay your employees? Well, 99.99%, in fact, I've never had anybody tell me that they would rather pay Uncle Sam than pay their employees, right? They would rather pay their employees, but they don't even know that there's things out there that they could do. And oh, by the way, I'm really worried about losing those employees over there. Can we put a set of handcuffs on them so they make sure they don't go anywhere in the process? Absolutely. Yes, we can. There's all kinds of options to be able to do that. You know what? My insurance is I can't get everything I need. You know what? Have you ever thought about doing some self-insurance? What? What's that mean? Well, if you need it, you can use it. If you don't need it, you got this bucket of cash for later on. What? How's that work, right? There's all kinds of things that you can do as a business owner that is much more than just buying that green paint, so to speak. So what I want to do when we come back right here on Life Planning 101 is I want to talk about doing everything you can to save taxes, because I really feel like people need to know what they don't know, and they don't know what they don't know. You think your answer is going to your accountant, your tax preparation professional, and I'm going to tell you they're great. I love them, but they are historians for the most part. So it's only one piece. They're looking backwards and seeing what we can do. What about the people that are looking forward? What about the people that are studying how to all the time? Are they incorporated on your team? And those are the people you need to be thinking about. So when we come back right here on Life Planning 101, we're going to help you learn more about how you can do more to save taxes. You're not going to want to miss it. Welcome back to Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services right here out of the little town of Eastland, Texas. And we are talking about doing everything you can to save taxes. Most people do want that. Most people do want that. Our engagement with business owners comes into play when, it gets to the end game, so to speak. They're looking to sell the business, sell a piece of property, sell a good chunk of the business, transfer it down to their employees, pass it on to their children, and they don't want to pay taxes. And, we get to look back and we get to see all these tax returns that have happened in the past, and we see all these, oh, well, you could have done that and you should have done that and all of this. And the business owner, it's really no fault to them because they didn't know what they didn't know. And it's really no fault to the accountant. I want to make that very clear because it's just a simple nature of the beast. You go to your accountant, you say, what can I do to save taxes this year? And they do everything they can from their perspective to be able to help that. But a sole professional to advise you on all aspects of your taxes, I'm going to tell you a little secret here. They don't exist. It's not out there. People don't know what they don't know. Your tax professional may not even know someone exists out there to be able to help with your situation. How about that? I may not know that someone exists out there to help with your situation. How about that? And so how does anyone know to ask? And we have literally, over the years, uncovered potentially devastating tax bombs with tax planning strategies not implemented appropriately. They thought they were implementing them appropriately. We saw one case where literally millions of dollars were on the line in one instance, just because of the logistics on how the company owned life insurance. And by the way, it was term life insurance. Millions of dollars of taxes were on the line in this case. There was another instance that was a looming future that this business owner had sold this business, and because of the way it was done, there was double taxation that was going to be assessed on the sale of that business, and then there could be up to another 30+% of penalties ahead of that. Huh, yes. It reminds me last night, so we had some friends over and we're sitting out there, and little Brian comes around the corner. He's all 60. He says, Daddy, I'm scared. Yeah, always get your attention, right? So Brett runs back there, and next thing I know, here comes this trash can, and it's got this smoke barreling out of this trash can. Well, he had seen, brother light a match, dad light a match. And go rinse it off. So he was just going to light a match. Well, too often with the tax code, this is what happens. We just try to light a match and hope we don't burn down the house. But these are complex strategies. No professional in their right mind would intentionally allow things like what I talked about to ever happen. But it brings to mind what Albert Einstein said about the tax code. He said it is the hardest thing in the world to understand. The hardest thing in the world. So this one sentence really may be the wisest thing Einstein ever said, which is saying a lot, right? There is no possible way that you can rely on one tax professional if you have success issues. You need a team. And by the way, it's not for the reasons that I've already stated. Because remember, the IRS has been doing a little bit of hiring. I don't know if you've paid attention. And this means you need to have your T's crossed and you need to have your I's dotted. And I would challenge that most taxpayers don't even know how to cross the T's or dot the I's. Every year. In fact, I was looking yesterday. We subscribe to its incredible service. By the way, highly suggested for business owners all over the place. It's called Bradford Tax Institute. And I was reading about all these changes that have happened for 2023. And every year we receive a plethora of changes from the IRS. So who is keeping up with how to document what? What is deductible? What is not? What does your accountant need to know? And what do they not need to know? And you may say, well, I think my bookkeeper is doing all of that. Well, I have a question for you. Has your bookkeeper come to you and said, this is what you need to do on this receipt and this receipt going forward? Do they go sit down with you and talk about the changes on how you're deducting your meals or your entertainment for your clients every single year? Do they go through that on an annual basis? Does your tax professional and your bookkeeper sit down together and possibly you and have like a coaching session to make sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted? I'm going to bet that's not happening. I'm going to bet it's not happening for 90+% of people out there. And you think it's no big deal. But remember, the IRS has been doing a little hiring. So this professional team isn't just your tax professional. Now we've added your bookkeeper, right? And there's even more than that. So when we come back on Life Planning 101, you're not going to want to miss who's on that team to help you do everything you can to save taxes. Welcome back to Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. So Albert Einstein, told you about him. Well, his driver used to sit at the back of the hall during all of his lectures. And after a period of time, the driver said to this, famous guy, I've heard you so many times, I think I could give that lecture in my sleep. And so for the next lecture, Einstein and his driver decided to switch places. And Einstein sat at the back and dressed in the driver's uniform. And the driver gave the lecture flawlessly. Well, at the end of the lecture, a member in the audience asked a detailed, specific scientific question. And without missing a beat, of course, the lecturer replied, well, the answer to that is so simple. I think I'm just going to let my driver sitting at the back answer it. Yes, I thought that was really good and very appropriate, right? Because here we are, we're thinking, you know a little bit of the tax code. Oh, I got this. No problem, right? And we talked about before the break about the plethora of things that change on a year-to-year basis and crossing your T's and dotting your I's, especially with all the recent hiring at the IRS. And you think it's no big deal, but we gave a show, and if you go back and listen with our sister company, Briscoe and Associates, to talk about sending 1099s to every person that you paid over $600 last year to, and for any services they provide. In companies, you need to give that 1099 to companies. Did you do that? Did you actually send that out? And the only companies that you don't have to do that with are corporations, right? But how many are actually corporations? And do you know they're corporations? They could be partnerships. They could be LLCs. They could, who knows, right? So making sure that you get those out are extremely important. And if you don't know that, most likely your bookkeeper doesn't know that either. And otherwise they'd be asking you questions. And the same thing on your receipts. Do you know that there's actually 5 things that needs to be on every receipt for your records? Yep, 5 things. You don't know what they are, you need to know what they are. And your bookkeeper needs to know what they are. And they should be asking you even more questions because they're not going to be able to answer all of them unless you're writing on those receipts 1 or 2 of those 5 things every time. Yes, this gets really messy. And your vehicles, man, I can't tell you how many times we start looking at stuff and vehicles are the number one things that business owners want to deduct, but they're not doing it correctly. And it's getting messy. So you need a team. You need that bookkeeper, accountant, right? The bean counter that's likely going to keep up with all those changes and is willing to coach you each year on what needs to be done differently. And they're willing to be coached on what needs to be done differently, and they're open-minded and like a sponge, and they want to learn and keep up with all this because it's a really big job. It's a really big job if done right. Then you got your tax preparer. That's that historian we talked about. They're going to record history in the best possible light to keep your taxes low, keep you out of hot water. Work with your bean counter to make sure the details are done. And they also need to be open to a team approach. If they think they know everything about everything and they're not open to looking at anything new, they're probably not the right fit for you if your goal is to keep your taxes low forever, because they can't possibly, per our previous conversations today, know everything that there is to know about how to do this. Then you've got a tax planner, and your tax planner should really work like a geographer. They need to help you chart your current map holistically, looking at everything. That's why us as life planners, we do this job, right? We're able to chart that map holistically, and we're able to chart a map for the future, one that knows enough about enough to see the picture holistically and have some ideas on what could be done or should be done to minimize a lifetime of taxes. Not just today, but a lifetime of taxes. And then you've got a fourth member of that team, and it might be a fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. Who knows? But that's your tax specialists, your surgeons, and you need them from time to time. Maybe it's a tax attorney. Maybe it's a forensic accountant. Maybe it's a specialist that's able to work in a specific area to implement a strategy that you want to utilize, and you want to make sure that you're doing it right. And this group of people has to work as a team. They have to know what's going on. Nobody can be working in a silo, because if they do, they're probably going to step on the toes of the other professional, and something's going to get missed, and there's going to be a gap or an overlap that ends up costing you money in the future. And in the case of taxes, it could be a big deal, right? So if you're going to have surgery, you want to get it done right. And your geographer and your historian should be there to help your surgeon and to help you figure out what surgeon you need and when it's a necessity and where to look. So here it is. So let's sum this up. It's tax time. Those payments to Uncle Sam are front and center. It's on everybody's mind. Again, if it's stressful, biggest recommendation of today, go for a walk. It's spring. Get your heart rate down. Do some exercise. Start eating a little better. Maybe have that glass of wine at night if that helps to get your blood pressure and thin your blood, right? Whatever it is. But I want to encourage you for the future to do one thing. Use this time as motivation to do something about your taxes on an ongoing basis. Don't continue to grind this out year to year to year. Stop it. Stop the stress. Let us help you map out that course, because I'm going to tell you, the people that actually do this create so much wealth when they just learn how to keep their wealth. It's amazing. Don't you want to be one of those? My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services right here in the great town of Eastland, Texas. God bless you. Have a great week. And join us next week on Life Planning 101. I'm pretty sure it's black and white money management with Aaron Kennedy, our very own CFA. And man, what better times to be hearing from him in these times with all of the financial turmoil going on. You're not going to want to miss it right here on Life Planning 101.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. If you have questions, you can email them to lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Don't forget to learn how our sister company can assist you with all of your tax, bookkeeping, and consulting needs. You can find out more at briscoeandassociates.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more Life Planning 101. The opinions expressed herein are those of the firm and are subject to change without notice. The opinions referenced are as of the date of publication and are subject to change due to changes in the market or economic conditions and may not necessarily come to pass. Any opinions, projections, or forward-looking statements expressed herein are solely those of the author, may differ from the views or opinions expressed by other areas of the firm, and are only for general informational purposes as of the date indicated. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Smart Money Group LLC. Kennedy Financial Services and Smart Money Group LLC are separate entities and are not owned or controlled by Calton & Associates Incorporated.